Yo, what's good, YouTube? So, today I'm going to talk about the seven deadly sins and how the common theme underlying all of them or overlapping them is the lack of self control. So, ultimately, we see Jesus going through life, battling temptation. You know, there's times when he has anger, but I suppose it's righteous anger in the temple. But what I'm talking about is how self-control is kind of the spirit of Christianity in a way, to where when Peter slices off the ear of the Roman soldier that collects Jesus before the trials, Jesus tells Peter to hold up, or else he's gonna die the same way that he's fighting. He said, "Put away the sword, or else you're gonna die by the sword." And there's that theme of self-control. When Jesus had the 40 days in the desert, he's also exemplifying self-control, and it just shows its face in many different battles. You have, like right now, I have the laptop pulled up. You got lust, you got gluttony, you got pride, envy, greed, wrath, and sloth. So let's talk about lust. When you have lust, it's like that human impulse to procreate, to just do whatever your body's telling it to do. But then when you really break it down, how do you overcome lust? There's methods such as prayer, such as not being in tempting environments, such as, not hanging around people who are going to promote that. But it comes down to self-control. All of this starts with self-control. If we move on to gluttony, you're eating, you're overeating. You're eating the wrong foods. You're making the wrong decisions. With lust, you're making the wrong decisions. So how do you make the right decisions? With self-control. That's the important part. So these are two different aspects, two different sins. You see lust playing out more in a secretive way. You can't really tell all the time. You can make it out through little comments and mannerisms, but gluttony is pretty apparent because you're overweight or you're just getting sloshed at inappropriate times. And then we're talking about pride now. That's one of the other seven deadly sins. And pride, you're basically not chilling out. You're not recognizing where your power comes from, and you're getting too involved in your position and your role, and you're overbearing. Ultimately, it's a lack of the correct decision. And the correct decision would be to recognize others' assistance and how others assist you in whatever role you're actually performing. Because to have a role means that you have a team or a community or a society. So inherently, you shouldn't be prideful. You could be grateful, you could be appreciative, and you could be respectful and honoring, but you shouldn't be prideful. And J. Cole has that song, "Pride is the Devil." And that's pretty much what he's talking about. Because when you have pride, you're pretty much disillusioned. So that's why we use that word, pride. And that's different from confidence. It's different from appreciation, gratitude, and respect. So those are good alternatives for pride. Then we get to sloth, which is pretty much being lazy, not helping out when you need to help out, not doing good when you can do good. And the reason why this is bad is because you're pretty much throwing your contributions out the window. Anything good that could have happened from you, whether you're being called to perform inherently or externally, it's just not going to happen because you don't have that self-control to overcome laziness, to get up out of bed. Your alarm goes off, you don't get out of bed. The night before you say you're going to wake up at a certain time, or you say you're going to do XYZ tomorrow, and then the time comes and you don't do it. So again, that's self-control. That's discipline of the mind. That's using your heart, your mind. It's pretty much being a masterful human. That's what these sins are. The sins is inadequacy of behavior and playing your role. So then we got wrath. Wrath is talking about uncontrolled feelings of hatred and anger. And again, even defining that is uncontrolled, because you could have feelings of hatred and anger, of course, But hatred is kind of like when you keep feeding anger and you're like, yeah, this is why this person is terrible. This is why this person deserves what's coming to them. And oh, I wish I can, accelerate that process for them. But no. So at that point, you're being overcome by these energies, by these emotions, by these, some people call them spirits, some people call them demons, some people call them whatever they call them. But the fact is that you're not who you are, and you're becoming something otherwise. You're becoming what these 7 deadly sins are, because you're not having self-control. And if you're not having self-control, the fact that there's something else acting through you and you are not displaying self-control means that you are being controlled by others. So what is the other? Whether it's a force of nature, a demonic force, a spiritual force, a societal force, is not yours. And that's the problem with this. That's why they call it the 7 deadly sins. Then we got greed. So greed is excessive desire for materialistic things. So notice it says excessive. Again, there's that lack of self-control. Excessive desire for materialistic things. You could have materialistic things, obviously, you're a material body, but the excessive desire implies that it's like, what are you doing? You kind of made an idol out of these things. You're being embodied by material accumulation rather than being the master of the material possessions. For example, I have a whole studio around me. I have a microphone, I got the computer I'm reading from, a nice camera, a nice lens, microphone, and I have this portable light. All of this because I'm using it. I'm not going off blowing every paycheck just trying to get the new, better, badder, because I'm not celebrating the materialistic possession overindulgently. It's all about self-control. It's all about using things. For lust, you use lust to procreate in the right environment. You have a wife, you have a girlfriend who you're dedicated to. Gluttony, you're hungry, you're gonna eat. Pride, you're grateful, you're confident, you're honoring what you've done, and you're proud of yourself. But again, there's always that limit. How far do you take it? Do you get overcome with that emotion and then you stop being on the course of what you're designed to do? That's the sin. It's getting so far off track that you've transformed into the essence of one moment. That one moment is to aid you in your path. The path is not the moment. And then we also have envy, which is jealousy towards another person's happiness. So envy is pretty much saying like, you're not respecting where you are and what your own story is and what's being done for you. Pretty much by celebrating other people too much, you are forsaking gratitude for everything you have. And the reason why this is bad is because you're pretty much getting blindsided again. You're getting overcome again. You're not having self-control, and you're not seeing how blessed you are in the role that you're being carved out to play. Like, let's say any prophet, for example, any celebrity, any person who you respect, there was that time period when they were slept on, when they weren't cool, when they weren't successful, when they weren't jacked, when they weren't rich, when they weren't well connected, and they didn't achieve what they achieved. So if they would have identified with the person that they were at that moment, they would have never became who they became, which is the issue that we're describing, because it's the lack of self-control. See, when God tells you to do something, it's because he has a plan for you. And when he has a plan for you, all you have to do is... Okay, so the battery just cut out, but what we were talking about is how when you're not following the plan that God gave you, you become envious, which is what? Another symptom of lack of self-control. Because if you were to follow the plan that God had for you, then that would be self-control, right? But since you have the lack of it, you've become over encumbered by the perception that you hold of other people. So therefore, you've pretty much been derailed again. So all of this makes sense when you realize that your power source comes from God, when it comes from Jesus, because otherwise, why not be slothy? Why not have wrath? You know, they did you wrong anyway. Why not be sloth? You're tired, you know, you want to rest. Why not be greedy? Other people have a lot. Why can't you? You know, why not be envious? You know, they don't deserve it, but you deserve it, right? So where's your prize? You know, why not be prideful? You know, you put in that work. You woke up every day. You did that. You know, what about gluttony? Like, why not eat? You know, why not be fat? It's not like anyone's gonna hurt me or I'm gonna die immediately. You know, I could just eat more if I want. What's a couple extra pounds? You know, and lust, like, why don't I just watch those videos? Why don't I just sleep around? Why don't I just act in this way? Because, you know, you only live once, right? See, you can justify all of these if there's no God in the picture. But once you realize that there is God, then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, you can see why these are wrong, because now your life has a purpose, it has a meaning, it has a trajectory, and it surpasses your own individual experience. The significance of your emotional life is not as important when you realize that there's other importance, such as the impact that you have on society and the plan that was given to you to live out. It's like a soldier. How important are the soldier's emotions? I mean, they are important, obviously, all respect. But if the sergeant or the lieutenant is going to say, hey, you got to do this, and you don't do it, people are going to die. Lives will not be saved. Lives will perish. Damage will be done. People will be hurt. And so when you understand that this is a spiritual warfare, you understand the importance of self-control in your life. But who's going to check you? Who's going to judge you? That's why you got to keep the scriptures close. You got to keep praying. You got to keep intentional about your life and be aware of when you're slipping off that road. You know, a lot of times socially, or even in a weak moment, you'll take a step or two down the road, and I believe it's acceptable to a certain degree, understanding that you're human. You know, you want to have a beer with your friends, you want to, you know, eat the cookies, eat the brownies, eat the ice cream, cool. But if this is going to become a pattern, you're definitely screwed. And that's all I got to say about that. All these 7 deadly sins, the common theme is lack of self-control. So be highly aware, be highly vigilant, and don't let anyone get you off your track. As soon as you're off your track, you're just another one of them numbers.